Hi, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Lori A. Harris, and we are joined on the Unlock Your Life podcast by the fantastic and wonderful Francesca Hogi, who is the author of this fantastic book, How to Find True Love. I am so excited to have her on the show today. And what you're going to get from this episode is learning the tips and tools that you need to really reconnect with yourself and identifying love for yourself, not as a strategy, but as a way of going through life. That's what I got out of the book.
Oh my goodness, Lori. Thank you for having me. And I love that. That was a beautiful introduction and way of summarizing the book. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Now, as I was going through the book, I noticed that you use this term, the fairy tale industrial complex, which
Yes.
I love, and telling people we need to disabuse ourselves of that notion. However, what I also felt like was if it was reading the book was like having you take our hand as our love fairy godmother and just guiding us gently through the process of what it means to look for and discover true love. What can you tell us about loving oneself as a path to true love?
Yes. Wow. Gosh, so much I can say about this. I'll try to be succinct. Well, you mentioned the fairy tale industrial complex, which obviously I talk about in the book. And just for your listeners, what I mean by that is that we have all of these different stories that, like, from literal fairy tales to romantic comedies to advertising to all love songs. And there's so many different ways in which we hear this story about love, about romantic love and true love. And it's about finding this perfect person and being chosen by this perfect person. And then once you're chosen, and then you live happily ever after. And we all know that that's not actually how it works, but we also know that in this day and age, it's really not how it works.
Right.
Right. And so I really like to empower people to understand that love is an inside job, and the relationship that we have with ourselves is the blueprint for the relationship that we are going to have with everyone else. So if we are not pouring into ourselves, if we're not recognizing our own gifts, our own worthiness, if we're not able to really validate ourselves, be our own cheerleaders, see how truly special and amazing and one of a kind that we are, then we're never going to actually have that feeling of true love in a relationship, because we're always going to be trying to get this other person to give us that validation. Whereas if you have that, and because you've read the book, but like I have a whole chapter in the book about self love, because it is a practice. It's not just one thing. It's not just waking up and going, looking in the mirror and going, I love myself, or I look great today. Like, those things are great, but how are you actually treating yourself? How do you speak to yourself, right? What do you believe about yourself? And those things are going to always be reflected in your relationships, particularly your romantic relationships, because they're so triggering for us. And they bring up all of our deepest insecurities and fears, especially as women who date men. We had so much conditioning around being good enough for a man and being chosen and by a man and being validated by him, and that can really lead to losing yourself in relationships and getting into anything from something that's just not so great to something that's actually really toxic and really harmful. So self-love, in addition to making yourself feel better and empowering you more in your life, it leads to healthier and more fulfilling relationships.
Well, thank you for that. I noticed that when you go through the book, the people that you are accustomed to working with, as well as the people that you're talking to in the book, tend to be high achievers, people
Yes.
who are accustomed to being successful academically, professionally, financially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you do a beautiful job of kindly telling people the things that got you to those levels of success may not serve you well in your
Yes.
pursuit for love. What can you add to that?
Yeah, well, success, and I think, there's a couple of things. Number one, when it comes to our professional success, our career success, there are paths that are laid out for us, right? It's like, go get this degree, get this kind of job, work hard at this job. And it's very tangible. It's very much like, okay, as you probably know about me, Lori, I was a lawyer in my previous career,
Right.
right? And so, like, if you want to be a lawyer, it's not like, how do I become a lawyer? It's like, no, you know what you have to do. You know that you have to go to college. You know you have to get a college degree. You know you have to take the LSAT. You know you have to apply to law school. Like, there's all of these steps. And so, it's very easy for us because, first of all, we have so much guidance around it and we have very clear paths to many of those goals that we can say, okay, well, you tell me I got to do A, B, and C, and that's what I'll do. And that works in a professional context. Well, I say it works in a professional context. Even in a professional context, it's not that simple, right?
Exactly.
But it is a bit more straightforward, right? And there's a lot of
Hmm.
guidance and there's a lot of resources around it. Whereas when it comes to romantic relationships, we are told, and this is part of the whole fairy tale thing, that it's just supposed to work out. And we hear these messages, oh, you'll find someone when you stop looking, but also you're supposed to put yourself out there. There's all these conflicting messages. And then what does compatibility look like? What does fulfillment in a relationship look like? No one really teaches us that. There's just a lot that we're left to figure out on our own. So it's a lot easier for people, many people, to put their energy and their focus into their career because, again, that feels tangible and there's a path, right? And when it comes to the romantic relationships, it's like, well, I'm just going to hope that I meet somebody that I'm attracted to and hope that it works out. And so there's a level of intentionality that is typically lacking in how we've approached romantic partnership when that is who you spend your life with.
Right.
Like, well, that's a big, big decision. And we've been very conditioned to be like, oh, well, we need them to be tall. We need them to, and it's like, well, I'm not saying we don't need to get into the height thing. Right? I use that as an example of something
Sure.
that's like, people tend to be so intentional about maybe some more superficial things or things that you can check on a list, but they're not really bringing that level of intention to, but what do I actually want that relationship to feel like? And what are my relationship needs? What are my skills to actually have the kind of relationship that I need to have? In your career, if there's a promotion that you want or there's a new job that you want, you're going to look and you're going to see, okay, these are the requirements and these are the skills that I'm expected to have, right, for that position. But we don't think about that for romantic love. We don't think about, well, how able am I to have boundaries, to communicate, to be vulnerable, to have discernment, right? To compromise. Like, how able am I to actually let somebody into my life and into my heart? How able am I to actually build the kind of relationship that lasts over time? We're not taught that. So I think there's a couple of reasons why we have this situation where you have a lot of people who are very high achieving in their professional careers and in their love lives. It's like, well, I have no idea what to do because the guidance hasn't been there.
Well, that's one of the things that I loved about the book. It has a little subtitle here, Unlock Your Romantic Flow and Create Lasting Relationships. I also think that the book is the kind of guide that could help people who are already in relationships and give you some insight into what one needs to do to help love continue and to last and to be nurturing to the relationship, and being nurturing towards oneself is in fact a way of taking care of the relationship as well.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
was very surprised at how helpful the book is for guiding a person through life. We chatted, you probably don't know this, but we chatted a little bit in the DMs because I saw you on social media talking about flirting. And I was like, girl, I do not know how to flirt. And oh, but that's why you should get the book, Lori. You should get the book because it's in there. And so then I was like, me flirt? And so I did get the book. And then they said, oh, it's not the first chapter.
It's like the 13th chapter.
Exactly. But I was surprised that I didn't just dive in and go straight to the 13th chapter. And I got a lot of benefit from reading the book. And you actually kind of prepare someone for that. Can you give us the Franny definition of flirting? Because I think it's really a recipe for how to move through life.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Yes, I'm going to give you the definition, but also I just want to acknowledge what you said before that too, just about this being a formula for life and whether even if you're in a relationship. I'm so glad that you said that. And I love when people say that to me. And I love when people who are in relationships are like, this has actually helped me. And now I'm clear on how to be a better partner. And I
Hmm.
also now know how to flirt with my partner. So I love to hear that.
Exactly.
Because again, who
Exactly.
teaches us how to do these things, right?
Right. Well, it has some
Yeah.
negative baggage with it.
Yes.
The word flirt can have negative baggage with it, even if it's just some people have the skill and some people don't, which it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
And your book points that out. And then
Yeah.
it also doesn't have to be kind of an invasive, disrespectful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my definition of flirting is words and actions that make another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. And that's the foundation of flirting. And that is something that is, I didn't say anything about you have to be attracted to them, you're trying to sleep with them. No, like it's just literally seeing another person and being intentional about what can I do to make this person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. And as you know, because you read the book, I have identified I think I have 8 different styles of flirting
Mm,
that I talk about. So there's lots of different ways to do that, whether it's just being very attentive, asking really interesting questions, being genuinely interested about like who are you and what do you have to say and what do you care about and how do you see the world. That makes us feel seen when people are like, oh, I actually care about you, I want to know not just, oh, how was
presence.
your day, but like, well, no, really, what's going on with you, how do you feel, right? And obviously compliments can be a way of flirting, but there's so many different kinds of compliments, right? So the way that you might give a compliment to a stranger in line at the grocery store and the way that you give a compliment to your partner who you're already intimate with, it might be different, and that's
Exactly.
okay. And so I really love to empower people to understand that flirting is very, very customizable, and it really starts with your intention. And if you lead with that intention, and then you'll start to notice, okay, who can actually receive this gift of my attention? Because you're giving your attention to someone is a gift to them. Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Your
Yeah.
attention is very valuable. And some people can't receive it. Some people get very uncomfortable when they feel seen. And so you have to also recognize that and recognize that within yourself. Because, like, wait, how good am I at feeling seen? And how able am I to receive that validation and that appreciation from another person? Or how much do I rather just deflect and say, oh, no, no, I don't look good today? Like, oh, this thing, oh, no, I look terrible. And I feel
Thrift
just
store.
I got it at thrift store. Oh God, I'm so tired today. Oh my, I look a mess or all these things. It's like, wait, no, just hold on, stop. Like, how well can you receive, right? How well
Hmm.
can you actually let that in? So I think that flirting is something that is fun and you can have so much fun with it. But I also think it's really serious. And I think it's something that's really important in terms of just connecting with other people and increasing your capacity to be seen as
One of the
special.
things
And
that
yeah.
you indicate that developing and building that skill set will take you out of waiting to be chosen. That when you develop the ability to connect with other people, then you're no longer relying on dating apps
Hmm.
and you're no longer having to be passive. And
Yes.
the way you describe it is almost just another way of networking, of getting out there in the world and meeting people, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah. You mentioned dating apps, and dating apps are, oh, goodness.
Exactly. Heavy sigh.
I'm not a huge fan of dating apps, but it's not that I don't think that people should use them at all. However, I do think that one of the big problems with what we're seeing in our dating culture today is that people have become so dependent on dating apps that they have lost that ability to just go out into the world and meet people organically. And that I think is a huge, huge problem. Like, why are we giving these platforms this power over us and cutting ourselves off from human connection, which is something that is always available to you? You might have to put yourself out there and be more bold, be more intentional, spread your wings, expand your social circle, but it is always something that is available to you if you are willing to put yourself out there. And sometimes that's going to be romantic, and sometimes that's going to be friendship. Sometimes, like you and I, we met at the Wing however many years ago, right? And
Sure.
so you never know, like you meet somebody, quote unquote, randomly, and then now you're years later you're still connected to them. You know what I mean? Like, I just
Right.
did another podcast interview on Monday with someone who I'd met on an airplane.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
We were sitting next to each other on an airplane and we had this great conversation. And then he wound up inviting me on his podcast. And it's like, great. And now that's another person who's in my world and who I'm connected to. And so you just never know. I think the last, I did years ago have a relationship with somebody that I met online. But, for my last three relationships, they were all people that I just met organically, just living my life, right? And that's a mindset and that's an openness that not everyone has. And so I like to teach people about flirting because it gives you some very tangible tools to work with to actually like court that serendipity and to increase that chance that you are going to be a person who can just meet somebody, quote, randomly and have that turn into a friendship or a work collaboration or a romantic partnership. You never know what could happen. And that's actually really exciting.
Well, that brings us to your own little term that you came up with, meet cute mindset. Can you tell us about
Yes.
it? I
I
love
know. I
it.
love making up terms. The fairy tale industrial complex, the meet cute mindset, the self love. I got a lot of them. Yes. So the meet cute mindset. And so actually, I just did my second TED talk last month. So it's about flirting.
Almost
Right.
at a million. You're at like almost 600,000, and it's only been a month that it's been published. So congratulations, Franny. I'm
Thank
super
you.
proud of you.
Thank you. And I share the talk is called How to Unlock Your Flirting Superpower. So for anybody who's listening and is like, I don't want to read 13 chapters of a book, you can go watch my TED talk in 10 minutes. And it's not the whole shebang, but it's tangible, right?
Hmm.
One of the things that I share in that talk is that there was a time where I had no idea how to flirt. And I was, on Match.com 25 years ago when that was very stigmatized. And it was like, that's only for losers. And I was like, well, I don't know how to get a date. So I got to be here.
This is
Right?
currently where I need to be.
I was like, I got to start somewhere. But through that process of really trying to teach myself how to date, I realized like, okay, well, I'm getting dates, but they're not really going anywhere. I'm not really getting asked out on second dates. It's not converting into anything more. And so that led me to learn how to flirt because I was like, okay, how can I do this better? Right. But one of the other things that whole process led me to was realizing like, oh, because I was one of those people who had some friends who they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm going out with this guy I met at, this restaurant or I met here, I met there. And I'd be like, what do you mean? How is this happening? This never happens to me. But I took it as a challenge and I started to think about, okay, well, maybe it's not just about I'm so unapproachable and that's just my destiny. Maybe there's something else going on here. And so I embarked on this journey to like actually start meeting people organically. And so I started telling myself, this is again years ago, every time I leave the house, I have the potential to meet someone special. And even though I was kind of like, I mean, I don't know if I will, but it's true that I have the potential. It is a possibility.
Right, right.
Right. And so even just saying that to myself, it started to change how I showed up in the world. It started to make me more open. So it was years later that I started calling that the meet cute mindset. But that was how it began, was me realizing like, oh, wait a second. If I actually do embrace this as a possibility, then how might that change things? And it did change things. And I became one of those people who's like, oh, yeah, I'm going out with this guy I met online at the deli. And my friends would be like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. We were at the deli and he had complimented my earrings. And then we started a conversation. And then, it's
I
like,
love that. I love that. So, Franny, you have four different sets that you refer to in your
yes.
book,
Yeah.
and you're starting with mindset, which is the start of everything. And so when you
Yes.
talk about a meet cute mindset, you're starting exactly with what you're thinking. And I love that really quickly you unpacked there was a time when I thought one thing and it resulted in this result. And so I started to consider, what if I think a different thought and I try it a different way and you ended up having different results? Can you go through the different skill sets that you
Yeah.
outline in your book for us, please?
Yes. Yeah. So the book is divided into four parts. So as you mentioned, mindset is the first. Then, and that's all again, how you think about love, how you think about yourself in relation to love, what your expectations are about relationships, all of that. And then the second part is heart set. So that is about you, your relationship with yourself, what you believe is possible for yourself. Well, one of the things that I really learned, not only from my own experience, but from being a coach, I really learned this from being a coach, which is that we are so good at making ourselves right about what we believe,
Mm,
even when we don't want it to be true. Right.
right.
So when I used to believe that boys didn't like me and that I couldn't get a date or nobody wanted to be with me, I manifested that reality. Right. And
Sure.
so really just looking at, well, what do I actually believe in my heart? Right. And how do I balance my head with my heart? And so that's the second part of the book. The third part of the book is what I call soul set. And this is the part that I always have to remind people that love is inherently spiritual. It is spiritual. Literally, it is not physical, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't scoop up love and put it in your pocket and take it home with you, right? Like it is
Right.
something that is experienced through your heart, through your spirit. And I think it's very easy to lose sight of that, especially when you are, well, even if you're in a relationship, but if you're single and you're dating, you can be in your head of like, okay, I want somebody who's this, that, the other, and you're trying to treat it like this checklist, this physical checklist, but it's like, wait, hold on, there's a lot more going on here. So how connected are you
Mm-hmm.
to the energy of love, or how much are you able to surrender to the flow? That's romantic energy, and all of that is a big part of what makes our love lives come together in a more easeful way or a
Right.
more difficult way. And then last but not least is the skill set. And so that's when I really get into, okay, well, what are the tangible skills that you can start practicing? And that includes flirting, and that includes how you discern who is and who isn't right for you, and, more of the nuts and bolts of dating.
Yeah. Well, I think my clients, like yours, are these high achieving, high powered people who are ultimately being of great service out in the world. They do good things in the world. They're used to having a really high impact. And what I got from the book is that when we talk about love, we do have to start with ourselves. It is about romantic love, but ultimately, we're building this world. What kind of world do we want to live in? And how you show up for yourself and in relationship is going to have a huge impact on the world that we're creating. So as a little flirter, you're putting out more love and energy into the world, and that's a good thing. And it's also a response with the Surgeon General said about us having this loneliness crisis. And so you want to encourage us to put down our little glass computers and interact with people and see people. So consider, how are you showing up in the world, and who are you being in the world? And are you using that little glass computer or dating apps as a shield to keep you from making connection? And your book really encourages us to put down your shields and that it's safe to put down your shields. I often think in lyrics, and when I was reading the book, I was like, bring me a higher love. Because you use
Yes.
that term a
Yeah.
lot, higher to higher love. And I love that you have done the work to bring more love into the world. And while you're a love coach, it's not just about this one small thing, it's about our impact in the world. So I want to thank you for that very, very
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Well, we're almost at time, and I really appreciate you being willing to do this interview. You are someone that has reinvented yourself a couple of times. You bravely went from the safety, which to me, I call it safety, of being a lawyer and venturing into another world. Can you speak a little bit about the bravery that is required to live a life that you absolutely love?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. I mean, thank you for that. And yeah, it definitely does require bravery. I think I am fortunate in that it didn't always feel optional for me, because I think my tolerance for a life that I don't love is not that high. And I did have some different things that happened in my life. I mean, I practiced law for over 10 years. So it wasn't like,
Oh, really?
yeah, oh, yeah,
I
yeah. So
thought
I
it was
had,
for like 5 seconds.
yeah, when I say that out loud, I'm like, wow, that really was a long time. So I did have to be brave because I got kind of stuck there, right? As we get
Mm-hmm.
stuck in life and like, oh, well, this is what you do. And I didn't know what else to do for a long time. And I think one of the things that helped me to be brave was, first of all, just the years going by and just realizing, like, oh my gosh, this is another year that I'm doing something that I know this is not what I was put on this planet to do. And then, my older brother died very suddenly right before his 40th birthday. And that was a real wake up call for me of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, because we all know, and I'd already lost my dad, like I'd already lost people, but losing my brother, who was only 2 years older than me, that was like, oh, wait, hold on a second. Tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
really is not promised to us. And at that point, I said, okay, I don't know what it is that I'm on this planet to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And it was actually a real moment of, I feel like surrender might be more
Mm-hmm.
appropriate than bravery
Sure.
because I surrendered into, okay, God, universe, you got to show me something here because I don't know what to do. And romantic love and dating was something that, I'd been on this long love journey myself. And I even had started a dating advice blog back in 2008 when I was still practicing law, just because I liked talking about dating, but I hadn't connected like, oh, well, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm going to make this into a career. I was just like, okay,
Right.
this is just a little thing that I like to do on the side. But then the breadcrumbs and then the signs and the synchronicities started happening. And then I discovered that matchmaking was a real profession. I discovered that there was a matchmaking institute. So I say, I like to tell people that because I think a lot of people who want to pivot and they want to do something different, sometimes you know what it is, and then that maybe does require some more bravery to say, okay, I'm going to take these steps to follow my heart. But when you don't even know what that thing is, that actually takes surrender. And that
Mm-hmm.
is not something we can just think and think and think about. It's something we have to really open ourselves up to, just like the meet cute mindset, just like dating. There's a point you just have to open yourself up and say, okay, I don't know what's coming, but I know that there is something more for me and I'm ready to receive it. And so, yeah, that's how.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You, in your book, at one point, you go back to Einstein and said, he asked, is the universe a friendly place? And I
Yes.
think that you're doing a great job of reminding us that it is and it can be. So thank you so much for being here with me and for doing this interview with me. If people want to find out more about you and how to work with you, besides your fantastic TED Talk, where else can they find you?
Oh, thank you, Lori. Well, I'm very easy to find. I'm Dear Franny on all of the socials. So that's a place that people can start. And also my website. There's my book, How to Find True Love, which is available wherever your books or audiobooks are sold if you like audiobooks like I do. And also you can visit my website, which is francescahogi.com.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you here, and I look forward to publishing this and sending it out into the world. Thank you for showing up for your gift. Thank you for being able to condense what you've learned over these years of helping other people into a viable tool book for us to refer to, and for saying yes to the universe and to having a bigger vision for yourself. I'm so grateful to have had this time with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lori. I am grateful as well. I appreciate you. Thank you again for having me.
Alrighty.